You're listening to the International Moving Podcast, your guide to moving to another country, brought to you by SDC International Shipping, LA's finest. An international move is exciting. It's a time to start over, establish a new business maybe, reestablish family ties, or retire where your budget will do more for you. Please enjoy today's episode, and if you have any questions about your international move, give us a call at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Jim for SDC International Shipping. Great to be back here together with you again today. I'm excited today, as I was last week, to announce yet another brand new website that we've just launched, and it's called Movers to Australia. This is our focused website for moving and relocating from the US, or really anywhere, to Australia. The URL for that is moverstoaustralia.com, www.moverstoaustralia.com. It's a complete, expertly designed hub helping people just like you relocate to Australia in 2025 and beyond. So if you've ever dreamed about living in Sydney, maybe setting up a business shop in Melbourne, or just retiring to the Gold Coast, this episode is for you. Australia is just a huge place, lots of things going on. So whether you're heading there for work, family, retirement, or just for more adventure, getting more adventure out of life, we built this site to help guide you on that journey. So this website is part of our SDC International Shipping. I guess you can call it a family of websites. We have one more coming. Probably next week I'll talk about it. And why Australia? Well, Australia happens to be one of our very popular moves. Australia is a long way off. Matter of fact, I remember back in during the year Y2K 2000, I was in a chat group with some people, and someone from Australia was there in the group. So, of course, it became the year 2000 there before it became here in the United States. I forgot where the day changes the fastest. I'm trying to think of where it was. It was a little island somewhere they were talking about it. But if you remember, it was a big deal. If you were around back then, if you were a little bit older. So to me, it doesn't feel like 25 years ago. But yeah, that was something 26 years ago before you know it. And it was just a time where people were expecting the computers to crash, when everything was going to flip over to the new century. Nobody knew what was going to happen. Books were sold on it. Documentaries were made about it. At the time, also, people were taking money out of the bank, fearing that the banking system was going to crash, having some extra cash on hand. I think I took about $300 out. In my mind, I thought if anything happened, and I talked to a few computer people, and I worked on computers myself, and it just didn't make any sense to me that everything would suddenly crash. But not knowing everything about everything, I guess that in the back of my mind, I thought, well, maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Obviously, there were other people, experts, who had more training than I did, that said it was definitely going to happen. And when you think about that, I mean, we can apply that to a lot of things today. You can find experts that have opposing opinions on just about every topic you could possibly think of. So I guess, and the same way the news is presented, right? You can present it from one angle, you can present it from another. Probably there's like 4 or 5 different angles the same report can be made on, and you get a completely different picture depending on who's doing the reporting. One of the things I specifically am thinking about right now is watching an old fight film. I was always a boxing fan most of my life. My grandfather was a boxing manager, trained one of the heavyweight champions of the world way back when in the day, Jersey Joe Walcott. He worked in his camp and others. And back then, well, not back then, but years ago when the internet first started, they had these radio broadcasts of old sporting events, and some of them were boxing broadcasts. And listening to the blow-by-blow and reading it and then seeing the actual film itself later, it was like watching three different events. So if you listen to someone describe what was happening, you got one picture in your mind. If you read about it, you got another picture in your mind. And if you watched it, you got yet another picture. So it really just goes to show that, we could all be sitting in the same room. We could all be watching the same thing. We could all move, for that matter, to the same place, in the same town, in the same neighborhood. And when we report back to family and friends what it's like, we can have completely, well, some of the things, of course, will be the same, but one person will get a completely different picture out of it. And so I suppose it's good as long as you have all the viewpoints. You put them all together, you'll get the whole of the picture. So I just say that about Australia because depending on who you talk to, just like any other country, some people would say, well, I would never move there because of this, this, and this. Then you talk to other people and they have a totally positive experience based on this, this, and that. So, but why are so many Americans moving to Australia? Not just Americans, other people too. But Australia has long been a destination for expats. That's what it comes down to. And Australia's economy has always been fairly strong. There's always been a lot of job opportunities there in the areas of tech, healthcare, education, skilled trades. The quality of life is consistently ranked among the best in the world. Think clean cities, healthcare. The landscapes speak for themselves, and the famously laid-back lifestyle is something that's attracted a lot of people. Australia's work-life balance, now I've never been there before, so I'm going by what I've read and what I've watched, but Australia's work-life balance, they say, is quite real. Paid parental leave, high wages, national parks all around you, strong public infrastructure make it very, very livable. And for families, Australia's education system is considered to be world-class with a lot of public and private schools offering international baccalaureate programs. The international baccalaureate programs, we actually have one here in my hometown in the high school. And it's for students that are a cut above, I guess you would say, as far as their grade point averages. You know, it's not that you have to have a little master genius to get into it, but they have programs that are maybe a little better structured than just what the average person, the average student is getting. So, but you can look that up online if you're interested in that international baccalaureate programs. I knew one of the people actually that was on the board who was the first American on the board, I believe. This was many years ago. And yeah, the program has always seemed impressive. I was looking through their materials over the years, and I thought, wow, I wonder if that was even available way back when I was in high school. But back to Australia, let's talk about what's happening right now in 2023. Now, Australia is currently dealing with some inflation. Rent in the major cities has jumped to around $650 AUD, Australian dollars, per week. The fuel and grocery prices have seen similar increases. But like a lot of things in life, smart planning goes a long way, and many Americans still find the lifestyle worth the price. Cities like Adelaide, Hobart, and Cairns, I think you pronounce it, maybe Cairns, Cairns, are more affordable. They're considered to be really charming places with culture and career opportunities. There have been some immigration policy updates in 2025. The government set the 2025 migration program cap at 185,000 permanent places, with an emphasis on skilled worker and regional migration pathways. The Skilled Independent Visa program is one that thrives there. They have employer-sponsored options, and that's always seems to be expanding. So, the plus side of that is a lot of people want to secure, who are still working. Obviously, they're not there for just education or retirement, and they're not entrepreneurs. They're going over there with the intent on working for a company, that's where the employee-sponsored or the employer-sponsored programs come in, because they help you get your visa, they help you get set up. You have a support system, and as well as a job waiting there, a position waiting there for you, or possibly you and your spouse. At our website, our new website, again, is at Movers to Australia. Movers as in plural. We are Movers to Australia. And there's a lot of information there on partner visas, how to apply, student visas, business visas, and we'll be keeping those updated. Remote and hybrid work is also reshaping how people or why people are immigrating to Australia. In 2025, more expats are settling outside of Sydney and Melbourne, choosing places like the Sunshine Coast, Newcastle, or Tasmania's Hobart because they enjoy that slower pace of life, lower cost of living, and the fast-growing digital infrastructure there. One thing you can say about Australia is when you look around, it's definitely not behind the times. I'm again looking from the outside looking in, places like Australia, places like Japan even. I see those places being on the cutting edge of, especially the cities, of change more than even here in the United States, with a very few options isn't the word, but very few exceptions, I guess would be the way to put it. If you go to places like, well, even Switzerland, how technology is used, how it's used in Japan, how it's used in maybe Sydney and places like that, you think, oh, I wish we had this back home. And that's just from what I've seen on documentaries and shows where people are talking about how those places keep up more on the cutting edge than even here in the United States. From what we've discovered recently on the political landscape here in the United States, a whole lot of things need to be updated. A whole lot of neglect has impacted the 50 states here in the United States, some more than others, as just about everything from infrastructure to the electrical grid, all of these things, in some cases, are severely dated. Matter of fact, where I came from in New Jersey, the whole electrical grid is, they say, about 60 years behind the times. And upgrading this stuff costs quite a bit. So it's good that they're moving more jobs back here, because, it's no good if the government has, billions or trillions of dollars to invest when the people within the country are struggling just to make ends meet. Anyway, not to get overly political about that, but if you go to moverstoaustralia.com, let me just walk you through quickly what we have there. We have our household goods shipping page. That's the full door-to-door international moving service, professional packing, container loading, customs clearance delivery, door-to-door from where you leave here to where you're going to there. Everything set up, garbage thrown away. There's even white glove service if you don't want to, even lift a spoon. I don't know if there's such a thing as not even wanting to lift a spoon, but you get what I'm talking about. Complete white glove service, which is great, because if you're older, maybe you've injured your back, the last thing you want to do is take a chance and hurt yourself lifting something that's too heavy. Car shipping, safe enclosed container shipping for vehicles. We help manage everything, documentation, import approvals, all of that. If it's not worth it, of course, you'll know. You'll actually know what the fees are for each of these maybe additional add-ons you're considering. Sometimes it just makes it better just to sell the vehicle and purchase something when you get there. Corporate relocation, of course. White glove services for employee and executive moves, including custom timelines, packing, HR coordination. We actually do embassy moves. And so a lot of people don't realize that. What do you mean by embassy moves? So in other words, if you're an official for the government and you're looking to relocate, SEC International Shipping handles that, including our new sister site, I guess you could call it, Movers to Australia. Last week I talked about a little bit about our site, moving from UK to USA.com. Hold on a second. Let me pull that up as long as we're talking about this. Move from USA to UK. Yes. I always want to put the word the USA, but it's not. It's move from USA to UK. No spaces, no hyphens, and you can find all our UK information there. And the Australia site is designed the same way to give you as much information, and we're going to keep on adding to that too. Packing services. Oh, but what I was saying about the government officials, we handle that. Matter of fact, we handle some of the biggest companies in the world. We're not allowed to use their name, but if you are into the stock market, if you have let me not give too many hints. I'll just put it this way: we move employees for some of the largest in the world. We can move government officials and have done that, from Embassy 1 to Embassy 2. Packing services, we use ISPM 15 compliant materials and professional techniques that meet Australia's strict biosecurity requirements. Remember, every country is a little bit different. Something that's important maybe in the UK may not be as important, or vice versa in another country. Same goes for Australia. Same goes here for the United States. Storage options. Secure Climate Controlled is available in both the United States and Australia for short or long-term needs. Sea freight versus air freight. Of course, if you have a tight timeline, air freight is going to get everything there much faster. Sea freight is more cost effective for a full household move, and that's where everything is loaded into a container, onto a ship, port to port, from port to your door. That's part of the door to door. Air freight works the same way, but it's from airport to airport instead of seaport, and then right to your door from there. Specialty moving services on our Moving to Australia website includes fine art, instruments, antiques, temperature sensitive items. Everything will be moved with expert care. And the nice thing about it is when you talk to a relocation expert at moverstoaustralia.com, matter of fact, if you literally want to talk to them, you can call them right now, 877-856-7050. That's 877-856-7050. You can talk directly with a relocation expert, or you can go to moverstoaustralia.com. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a little red button that says We Are Online, and you can chat directly with them if you rather type. Or if you want a free quote, there is a moving to and from form right there. You can access it from any page on the website, and it's just several steps. You fill in your information, and then someone will contact you with a free quote. I like personally picking up the phone and calling whenever possible, because it's nice just to talk to a person, and if there's any specific issues you have about that move, making a move to Australia, it's good to be able to talk to somebody that has access to the information that you need immediately at their fingertips. Okay, so we also have a visa and customs help page, which will give you detailed guidance on the documents you'll need, what taxes may apply, and how to avoid any delays at customs. Now, people ask, what's the average cost for moving to Australia in 2025? And it depends. Unfortunately, I can't go into any more depth than that. But, for example, just consider this. Imagine you're living in an apartment versus living in a 2-bedroom home versus living in a 4-bedroom home versus living in the country versus living on the 10th floor of a building, a condo in the city. You get what I'm talking about? In other words, there's so many variables that affect the cost. It's hard to just come up with a number. So you just know that air freight costs a little bit more. And the best thing to do is, again, talk to a relocation expert. Now, one of the things which is great about SDC is that when you're serious about getting going, you can, basically talk about what you have with somebody over the phone. But when it comes time to give you an estimate, they're going to actually see what it is that you're moving. And so if we don't have somebody in your area to come out and actually take a look at everything, and get the accurate quote to you. That can be done using an app over your phone or online. There's a lot of ways to do it now. And so that's what you want to have. You want to be able to show all of your items. That way you can have an expert say, that will have to be wrapped specially, or that particular item isn't going to pass through customs, and here's why. And so that's one of the most important parts of the project. Anybody can give you a number over the phone or online, but until you actually have eyes, think about it. If you were the moving company and you're helping from the opposite side, you're going to want to see exactly what it is that you're moving so that you can make plans to move that appropriately. Imagine having something that is extremely delicate, maybe a sculpture that's like a fine china with very delicate pieces on it. Then you're going to want to make sure that that is specialty wrapped, specialty crated, so it doesn't shift during transit, and so it's protected. I remember a friend of ours having this sculpture that was like blooming flowers, and each leaf was specialty hand designed, so thin like porcelain, and it cost a small fortune. And it was so delicate that it was in a case with a border around it, and when you pulled it out, you had to pull it directly out, because if it even hit the side, you could crack one of those delicate leaves that were part of the sculpture. So also add-on services can affect the price. If you need specialty crating, of course, you're going to spend a little more. Specialty packing. If you want to do part of the packing yourself, in other words, you're going to pack items that aren't antiques or easily broken, then you can save a few dollars by doing some of that packing yourself. Customs duties, storage, special handlings, insurance, all of those things, when added together, will create the bottom line. So you want to get the full picture, and that's what STC will do. Everything is broken down into detail, and you're going to see exactly how much it's going to cost. Nothing's going to be hidden. And then there's also ways, with all of that in mind, to get the price down even a little bit further, like groupage shipping. That's a great way to save money if you're not moving a full household. In other words, your shipment is packaged with other shipments that are going to the same place. Now, it might be a little slower that way on occasion, maybe not, but in case there's not enough items to fill up that container when it's going, they're not going to ship a half-filled container. You're going to wait until that fills up. So those are just some of the details that maybe people aren't aware of that that they'll go over with you. All right, tips for a smooth move. I think this is important no matter where you're going to. You're going to want to start early. The minimum is 3 months, I would say. 6 months makes a lot more sense because, there's just so many things that you have to get taken care of, not the least of which is what type of visa are you going to get? Are there going to be any delays with the paperwork? Are you eligible for work? Are you going to be retiring there? Decluttering is huge. The less you move, the less you pay. It really comes down to that. Professionals for packing. If you want to avoid customs delays due to improperly packed goods, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. If you don't know the right way, it's probably better to pay, to have your items packed by a professional. Ship documents separately. Always handle your own passport, certificates, your legal paperwork. Have that on you, not in a box somewhere, so you have quick access to it. Understand some of the things that you can't bring to most places, including Australia. No fresh food, untreated woods, or prohibited plants. By the way, I saw an insect on the hood of my car probably about 8 months ago. It looked unique, so unique. I was staring at it, moved to the windshield. I took a picture of it. Long story short, it was an insect that is normally found in the Middle East. Somehow it had made its way here to the United States, and I'm guessing that it brought a friend or two with it. So, you understand, how things go wrong, and why certain things are prohibited and certain things they're very strict about. So just be aware of that. You're going to want to budget a little bit extra. Think of it when you're going on a vacation. however much you think you're going to need, add another 25% on that. I know that might seem like a lot, but especially when we're considering that inflation is affecting a lot of the world, whatever the prices are, you're just going to want to make sure that you have a cushion there, that you're not stretched too far. You're going to want to research your new city, the new town. There are local Facebook groups for just about every town everywhere, and those are really just, one person just said they're like gold, because you can actually talk to people that live there and get the kind of information you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Insurance coverage, double check it. Protect your shipment with the right type of policy. You can look at policies in terms of what I like to say small, medium, and large. And depending on what it is that you're shipping, certain things are worth the extra protection, and other things, not really. So flexibility. When it comes to international logistics, you have to have a little bit of patience. Sometimes things take a little bit longer, or things change a little bit. So you have to have a little bit of flexibility in there. So what's life like in Australia in 2025? Let me end by saying that just a few things that I found. Healthcare access. As a permanent resident or an eligible visa holder, you'll likely get access to Medicare, Australia's public healthcare system. Cities like Adelaide and Canberra are considered places that are leading the world as far as clean energy goes. And 2025 is also the year that Sydney is launching its full electric ferry network. Very interesting. I didn't even know until I did a little digging that there was such thing as an electric ferry. Digital nomad visas are in development. A little bit behind, I would say Australia is with those, but Australia is considering visa options tailored to remote workers. So if you're location independent, that's something that might be of value to you. A lot of countries are already doing this. They already have it set up. And we can be talking about Asia, Middle East, Europe. A lot of them already have the remote worker visas. Digital nomad visas are another way to put it. So fast internet in remote areas, thanks to something called the NBN rollout. Regional Australia now has fiber and 5G accesses in places that in the not too distant past were completely unreachable. So if you haven't been there already, moverstoaustralia.com. Go there, get a free no obligation estimate or quote, or call directly at 877-856-7050. That's 877-856-7050 to speak directly with a relocation expert. So whether you're planning your move for later this year, or you're just considering the possibilities, now is the time to begin your investigation. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please go ahead, share it with a friend. We appreciate you when you share this podcast. If you enjoy it, you can subscribe. And your sharing of this podcast makes it possible for us to reach people who probably otherwise would be very difficult, if not impossible, to reach. There's just so many podcasts out there, so much content being created today. But anyway, this is Jim for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and I will see you in my next episode.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for listening. Whether you're relocating within the country or moving to the other side of the world, we're here to help from start to finish. Connect with us today at 888-779-3962. That's 888-779-3962.